Hey everybody, welcome to Sid's channel where we may or may not have an unhealthy obsession with reviewing toys. On today's episode, we're going to be taking a look at the Transformers Kingdom War for Cybertron Rattrap. So first things first, let's take a look at that packaging, and we'll move this little guy out of the way, bring this forward. So right there on the front, you've got some artwork of Rattrap. You see the arc in the background there. You do have WFC K2, the War for Cybertron Kingdom 2, to designate the second figure in this line. You have Rattrap on the side here, Transformers Kingdom War for Cybertron on the front. Not much on the side, just says core class in a few different languages. On the back, you do have the product shots, robot mode, rat mode, 18 steps, Rattrap on the side, and all the warnings you could ever want. Sad baby. This side, Transformers War for Cybertron Trilogy, Transformers Authentic. And that is it for the packaging. Not much to speak about here. So let's talk about what came in that package. So we'll bring Rattrap back in so you've got something to look at while we talk about the other items. He only came with 3 things. One of which, to begin with, is the one of the biggest wastes of paper as far as I'm concerned. Copies of the same warnings. I can only assume. I've never actually taken the time to read this. This is the one thing out of Transformers packages that I typically just throw away as soon as I open them. So we will never see this again. Comes with his instructions. Again, as I've said in previous episodes, that the instructions are pretty good on this. I mean, there are, surprisingly for a small guy, for a core class, there are a couple little tricky parts here, and it's just difficult to capture in the illustrations, but for the most part, hey, they do the job. Last accessory is going to be his weapon. So not a lot to see here. Just your basic run-of-the-mill firearm. And he does have weapon storage. We'll talk about that in a second. But first, let's set that off to the side and we'll bring Mr. Rattrap in for a little bit closer inspection. You will notice, being that he's a core class, he's not a big guy. So we'll bring him in. We'll try to get some good close-ups on here. He does actually have some surprisingly good detail. Particularly, man, that head sculpt right there, the paint job on that, very nice. The eyes, the mouth, done very well. I'm impressed with the overall level of detail and the paint work on this guy. Of course, you do have the big rat chest there. Now the forearms, this is interesting. I'm shocked to see, not only does he have paint, but he also has insignias. This is pretty surprising to me. I mean, the level of detail and the fact that, my goodness, this is so small, but they're still able to get the detail there. This is fantastic. I'm really impressed with that. Come down here to the crotch, upper legs, lower legs, and then the feet. Take him from the side. Of course, he does have a backpack. Essentially, for a transformation, he's just crawling out of the rat skin and storing most of the rat skin on his back. So, not going to see a whole lot of tricky engineering on this as far as folding panels, anything to try to hide this. What you see is what you get. This reminds me of the facehugger from Alien. Just this part right here. It's a story for another day, I suppose, but interesting to see the way they did that. Do have his little feet standing up right there. And then the right side. There he is from the top. There he is from the bottom. All right, so let's talk a little bit about articulation on this guy, then I'll show you the weapon storage. Articulation, again, being a small figure, leaves a little bit to be desired, but overall, you know, for what they packed in this size, not too bad. His head does not move side to side very much. It's definitely not going to lock in position. It's just sitting here. I'm going to take a guess and say this is some type of a mushroom peg underneath here. You do get the side to side. For transformation, the head will move around a full 360. So you see the back there that goes to the back of the neck of the rat mode. I find it interesting that, at least on my copy, you can pose the head going to the left fairly easily, but going to the right, I seem to get a little bit more interference, and it wants to stick and kind of return on its own, or even just with the slightest touch, it wants to come back over straight. So posability is a little bit more difficult if you're going to have him, you know, shooting a weapon and looking off to his right versus looking off to his left. But again, that's probably just my copy, so not too concerned about that. For the shoulders, you do not get a full 360. You can bring him out that far, and that's due to the transformation joint back here, so it just locks in behind the shoulder of the rat. So you can, if you need to, I mean, wanted to do something really funky, you could probably bring this down and get some really strange moves out of him if you wanted to, but shoulder movement is going to be limited there. Again, as part of the transformation, you can bring this up to about there. And then you do have, in previous, let me back up. In previous reviews, I have stated my disdain for the ball joints, particularly for arms and legs and hips and shoulders. However, for a figure this size, a figure at this price point, I'm not going to complain too much about it. It doesn't look terrible. Again, when you're looking at a figure this size, and you're typically going to have him on a shelf with the larger figures, it's going to blend in. And if you have the arm bent at a certain angle, that ball joint's going to disappear anyway. So I'm going to forgive it this time for a figure this size and at this price point. But because he does have the ball joint, he does have, you know, the full run of bicep rotation. There's no limits there. He does come back that far before you begin to pop the forearm out of the ball joint. He does get, bring this over to the side, he does get over 90 degrees of bend at the elbow. And there's no other articulation there. He just has nicely detailed hands. The wrists are not articulated in any way. He does not get waist rotation. Again, this is due to transformation and also due to the fact that this is a really inexpensive figure. Hasbro's not going to take the time to try to design a waist swivel in this and try to retain the price point that they have. So move the arm out of the way. So you see here, we got a ball joint for the hip. So you do get a little bit of hip motion there. You can bring the legs out that far in the front. You can bring them out that far in the back. So he does have good range of motion in the hips. You can spread them out. He can go full Van Damme. And then for the knees, again, ball joints back here. You do get slightly over 90 degrees. And of course you get full knee swivel because of that ball joint. Now you do have another joint right back here, just behind the knee, but this is for transformation. Again, one of my complaints with the ball joints is when I try to bend this knee, this is the one that wants to give, just by virtue of where I grab him with my fingers. So if I hold him up here a little bit more, he'll bend in the right spot. And for the ankle, again, a ball joint, so you get full range of motion in any direction that you want, limited only by the size of the outer diameter for the foot. So helps with the posability. All right, now let's bring his weapon in. Put his arms back where they need to be, set him down. Take a look at the weapon. First thing that we'll do is we'll talk about the weapon storage for this. So the weapon for Rattrap stores back here. You actually have a spot for the weapon. Oh, I already had it in the right position. I don't know what I'm doing. I was trying to get ahead of myself. You have storage back here for this. Let me set him down. There we go. So you will use this tab right here, and you will put it right in this slot right here on his back. So just take that in, slide that in, and all things being equal, that blends in pretty nicely with Rattrap. It's all the same color. It's just a big mess back here because of the backpack anyway. If anything, this might actually fill in some of the hollow areas a little bit better. And of course, when you turn him around, you know, you just don't see it. So it's stored on the back. You're gonna have him up on the shelf. Weapon stores in the back. You can't see it. Pretty straightforward. All right, so let's get down to some transformation. This guy's pretty straightforward. Like I said earlier, there are a couple of tricky spots here just in the way you have to do the origami for the hind legs, but for the most part, it's not a bad transformation. So what you want to do is you'll want to actually take the backpack and pull that away from the body. And it's okay if this comes off, if it disconnects. It's not that big of a deal because you're going to be moving it anyway. So now you notice I have a gap right here. So what you want to do is you want to take your head, spin the head 180 degrees so that way you've got the gray for the back of the neck. And then you'll take the entire head and you will turn it. Now, there is a hard stop on here. When I've transformed this guy for the first time, and I don't know how well this is going to show, I was really concerned that I was going to rub the paint off the top of his head trying to get it down there in this hole. But it's simply just a hard stop. So you turn the head or twist the head until it doesn't move any further. Okay? So that way when you have him in position, he's not going to go anywhere else. You can take these arms. You could have done this before you did the head as well or the backpack, but again, there's really no set order that you have to go in. Take the arms, spin the arms up, bring the arms down. And when you bring these arms down, you have a slot here and a tab here. So you're going to manipulate these arms until you can get those tabs and slots lined up. So just maneuver that around, get that tabbed in like that. Should have something that looks similar here. Do that again on the other side. So take this, spin that down, and then you have the arms. You should have the arms looking something like that. All right, now we'll get to the rest of the body here. You can kind of see where this is going, excuse me, with the back and the sides. We're going to fold these down here momentarily. What you need to do is you need to get the legs in position, and then back here, let me move these down a little bit. Fold the sides in. Now don't push them all the way in yet because you still need to lock the legs in. You want to fold the sides in like that. And then what you can do now is you can see you've got slots here that go into the tabs right there. So you bring your legs up, put the leg in position, do the other side, bring it into position, and you should have something along the lines of that. Then, same thing, you're going to have something similar. You're going to have tabs here, you're going to have slots. So what you do is you bring these up until you get them. You got to get all this aligned right. So this is what I was talking about, a little bit of the origami for the alt mode. So you get that lined up. So you have that slot. Well, I say slot, I use the term loosely because it's just an open area. It's going to line up with this. Again, don't squeeze that down yet. Do the same thing over here. Get this all lined up. There we go. So that way we kind of have these in place. Now, right here, you have two slots or two tabs that are going to go into these slots on your forearms. So you're going to twist your forearms until you can see those slots. Should look something like that. Now you can bring this down, and your arms are going to come down a little bit as well, which lets the back come down, and that's going to align those tabs and those slots. So now, pull this out of the way just a little bit. There we go. I should have done the arms first. I think I probably would have made my life a lot easier. There. Again, off camera, I transformed this guy half a dozen times. Get on camera, and I'm not lining him up. May very well be due to the fact that I didn't have his center portion lined up. Now I should be in better shape. Yep, there we go. It also doesn't help that he's such a small figure. I struggle with figures this size in general. There we go. Sorry guys, I just had to get all my stuff lined up here, which is really what this is. I know I've used the term, but I'm going to use it again, but it's just the origami of this guy. And I am not one to edit and hide any difficulties that I might have, because this is the real world. These are the kind of struggles that you guys may run into as well. So I appreciate when I'm watching a video and somebody doesn't just do it right the first time, make it look so slick and so easy, when in reality it sometimes can be a little bit of a chore. Excuse me. So there we have Rattrap in his final alt mode. And yeah, sure enough, he looks like a rat, looks like a mouse. There's no denying that. So we'll take a look at him here. There is the top. There's the bottom. Overall, they do a really nice job of hiding everything, except for the head. He does peek in there a little bit, but I almost view visible head syndrome as just a part of the charm of Transformers now. And of course he does have the fists. You could make arguments that those could be other things on the back of a rat, but I'll leave that up to your imagination. There he is from the side, and of course the other side. All right, and now he does have weapon storage in alt mode, which is right here on his hip. So you just take this tab, line it up with that slot, and then you have a rat with a sidearm, I suppose. So yeah, it is weapon storage, no denying it. One other thing that I want to mention is his weapon. I can't find anything on Rattrap that is effects compatible, but his weapon is effects compatible. So bring in handy, trusty effect here. And yeah, sure enough, just plug that in and you can pew 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 all day long with Mr. Rattrap, or at least with Mr. Rattrap's weapon. Alright, so let's get him transformed back into robot mode, then we're going to bring in some comparisons, and then we'll get this thing wrapped up so you guys can keep going with your day. So, no real method to the madness here. You just start taking his legs down. Again, you're going to unfold this guy. You're going to take the rat covering off of him and reveal the robot inside. Then you just you've got those forearms tabbed into the back of the rat here, so get a fingernail or something up in there, and then you can peel those forearms away, lift this up, get it out of the way for now. Take the sides, undo the sides, get those out of the way, and then we'll just straighten these legs out and we'll make them look all pretty here in a second. Then pull this out. So you're going to split that backpack again so you've got enough of a gap that what you're going to do is you're going to bring his head up, spin his head around. Now this backpack's on that double hinge, so now you can bring that up, push that in. Now you have his shoulders in the right position. You can then bring the arms up, fold them down, turn his forearms out. Again, bring the arms up, bring down his shoulders, turn the forearms out, and we'll do the legs next. So this is just a matter of turning the knee, so the knee bends in the right position, turning this transformation joint to the back, and then twisting his foot so his foot is pointing in the right direction. Same thing over here, turn the knee, turn the transformation joint, turn the foot. Then we've got the front all done. And then we'll come back here, we'll do some cleanup. So for the tail, just going to twist that out. Get a little bit of a hook right there. Bring this up, clip that in, and now you have his backpack complete. And there we have Mr. Rattrap back in his little tiny robot mode. Now, let's take a look at those comparisons. I think I mentioned in some of the previous Kingdom reviews that I've done, I don't have any Beast Wars figures from the G1 or from the first time they came around in the late 80s, early 90s. Mostly due to just the fact that I've always been more of a fan of the transformation from machines to robots back to machines. Never really got too interested in the robots to animals aspect of it. So what I'm going to do, first and foremost, I can't compare him to a G1 Rattrap. The best that I have is I can compare him to a G1 Terrorcon, and this is Mr. Ripper Snapper. So I'll bring him in, put those two guys side by side. All right, move him on out of the way. Then what we'll do is we'll bring in some of his compatriots from the Kingdom line, from this current line. So we'll start with Warpath, who I thought was on the tiny side already, but compared to Rattrap, he just looks like a giant. All right. Next, we'll bring in Optimus Primal. And then we will bring in, again, I say it almost every review, and I'm going to keep saying it, maybe one of my favorite Transformers in years, Cyclonus. Again, wow, if you can only get one figure, get this one. Guy's amazing. Love the transformation, love the engineering, alt mode, robot mode, looks perfect. Love it. Anyway, not his review, Rattrap's review, so you can see pretty significant size difference. And finally, for what I have in my collection so far, is Beast Wars Megatron. And I will need to raise my camera up just a little bit. get this guy in. He is a leader class, so a little bit bigger. There you go. All right, so let's go ahead and we'll do a family shot here. I'll bring Rattrap into the front. We'll keep Megs where he is, put him at maybe a little bit of a side shot. Bring in Cyclonus. We'll bring in Optimus Primal. And we will bring in Mr. Warpath. So overall, not a bad looking group. I think it's coming together quite nicely. Looking forward to the other releases for this line. So to wrap it up, let's talk about my thoughts on whether or not this guy's a good value. Plain and simple, he is a small figure at a small price. I think what Hasbro has done here they packed in a lot of fun and a lot of pretty decent engineering into a figure that costs about $10 US. So I think that's pretty decent. Me personally, if this guy would have been $15 or $20, I wouldn't have touched him. I just don't think that there's enough there for me to get excited. Again, I missed the boat on the Beast Wars the first time around. They're not really my cup of tea. You know, out of all of these, I'm looking at these two guys way more than I'm looking at these three. So, again, that's just my opinion. Everybody has opinions. Doesn't make it right. If you are a fan of Beast Wars, if you have had the G1 Rattrap, if you get excited by this kind of stuff, you will really like this guy. I think he looks good in robot mode. He definitely pulls off a really good looking rat in alt mode. Now, the rat mode, I forgot to talk about articulation, mostly because there really isn't any. About the only articulation you're going to have in that rat mode is just the positioning of the hind feet. Everything else is locked in place. You're not going to do a whole lot with it. He's just going to be a static figure sitting there on your shelf. But overall, for the price point, particularly if you have a history, if you have some nostalgia for the Beast Wars, you're going to enjoy this guy. I don't think he's ever going to be worth more than retail, but $10, not a bad price. I didn't mind paying that for him, bringing him home so I could do this review for you guys. That being said, that is going to wrap this review up. I thank you for watching. If you like what we do, please, please, please give us a subscribe, give us a like, give us a rumble, leave us some comments, let us know what we could be doing better. Like I've said in the previous reviews, I'm not doing this to make money. I'm doing this because I love Transformers. I love preaching the gospel. I want to help you guys make good financial decisions out there. So whatever I can be doing to help add value to these reviews, I'm more than happy to hear that feedback. So that's all I've got to say about this guy. $10, hard to say no to him. Thanks again, guys. Appreciate it. We'll talk to you next time.